This week on the Timelapse Show, I'm going to use math to show... Wait. Don't go away. Don't... Come back. Okay, let me try a different approach. This week, I'm going to show how to use your intervalometer to... Okay, still too big of words? All right, let me try this. This week, I'm going to demonstrate how often you need to take a photo to get the time-lapse results that you want. Plus, Disneyland. Yeah, we're going to talk about Disneyland. Stick around for Disneyland. Hello, fellow time-lapsers. My name is Steve Barth. This is show number 7 for the week beginning August 29th, 2018. We're just about to August, which means the summer is almost 2/3 over for many of us. But don't worry, there's still plenty of time to get out there, shoot some amazing time-lapse, and I look forward to seeing those results. So let's get into some information that will really help you better understand time-lapse photography and how it works and how you can improve your shots. And that's through the intervalometer. The intervalometer. It's a big word. It's often difficult to say in a rational sentence, but it's key in how you take time-lapse pictures. Essentially defined, the intervalometer dictates how often your camera takes a picture. So for instance, you can take a picture every second, or you can take a picture every 5 seconds, or you can take a picture every 10 seconds. But this setting is going to dictate the style of your time-lapse, and it's going to dictate the look of your time-lapse to really help get across the motion that you're desiring. As always, in order to kind of establish a baseline for discussion, let's set up a quick scenario so we know what we're going to talk about. So typically speaking, and I'm going to say typically a lot here, but typically speaking, I'm out shooting scenery time-lapse photos. And I give myself about an hour of time to be out shooting a time-lapse. Those are the two numbers we're going to start off of to explain this math. Now, also typically, I like having a shot that lasts about 15 seconds long. This is kind of the perfect setup for me because with a 15-second shot, I have enough time where I could play the whole 15-second shot. I typically don't in an edit because 15 seconds is a long time. But that 15-second shots, typically there's a little bit of movement at the beginning as I'm getting the camera set up and testing everything. There's usually a little bit of movement at the end. I can have time to chunk that off. Oftentimes, I don't want the entire 15 seconds. It's not as dynamic. So I have enough from the middle that I can choose from, or I can speed it up and use the whole thing. Bottom line, in a 15-second shot, I've got a lot of options, which is why I like those. So the question then becomes, in order to get my 15-second shot within the hour that I have to shoot it, how often do I need to press the button? Or how often do I need to have the camera engage and take a shot? So let's do that math. Now, another typically, to throw into the scenario here, I edit at 24 frames per second. Now, we're going to go a lot more in depth in a future show about different frame rates and the different types of looks that they can give you. But for now, suffice it to say, 24 frames a second, which means in every second, I need 24 different pictures in order to make the motion look correct to the human eye. Okay, so here comes the math. So we want a 15-second shot. We need to multiply the 15 seconds times 24 pictures needed for each second. That means we need a total of 360 shots in order to get enough pictures to produce this time-lapse. Now, as I said, I like to shoot for about an hour, so let's add that into it. So the hour is 60 minutes. So we're going to we need 360 shots. We have 60 minutes to get those 360 shots. So we're going to divide 360 shots by that 60 minutes of time, and that means we need to take 6 shots every single minute. Now, if we continue to divide that down, 60 seconds in a minute, we need 6 shots. That means every 10 seconds, my camera needs to be taking a shot. So my intervalometer setting, or my interval setting, is going to be 10 seconds. Now, let's do some quick backwards math to double check ourselves and see if this makes more sense. So One shot every 10 seconds, that equals 6 shots a minute, times the 60 minutes that I'm shooting, that equals 360 shots. That's the total that I need. I divide by the necessary 24 shots per second, and we get a 15-second shot. So hopefully, from a math perspective, that makes a little bit of sense. So again, I'm going to set my intervalometer at 10 seconds to get the shot that I need for the movement that I want. Now, almost all time-lapse cameras have the ability to set an interval, or set your intervalometer, as it's formally called, and you can control those settings in the menu. So for instance, in a GoPro camera, you can go into your interval settings and you can say, I wanted to shoot every 5 seconds. I wanted to shoot every 10 seconds, every 30 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever you want that number to be, you can set it as long as it's in one of those intervals. Now, the only camera that you can't set your interval at that I've found is an iPhone. This opens up a big can of worms. We will talk about using an iPhone for time-lapse, a few episodes down the road. So bear with, but just remember, if you're using an iPhone's going to dictate what your intervalometer is set at and not let you control that. But any other camera used for time-lapse, you're going to be able to control that, which is why you need to know what number to set. So what happens if you have less than an hour, or 10 seconds doesn't work for the subject matter that you're shooting? Well, you can continue to do math, or one of the things I like to do is use an app. And one of the apps that seems to work really well for me is the Syrup Genie app, which you can get on the App Store for whatever device that you have. Now, if you don't actually have the Genie in front of you that you can connect with, you can go into what's called Test Drive, which allows you to use the app even though there's nothing connected. So from here in my Test Drive, I'm going to go to Time-Lapse. I want a new time-lapse. And this is going to give me different settings. Now, up here at the top, you'll notice a few things. For my record time, I can set how much time that I have. So, for instance, if, let's see, I want to go 1 hour here. I want my total play time, I want my total play time to be 15 seconds. And now you'll see over here that my interval is set, as we've talked about, to 10 seconds. Because we've done the math, we figured out that that is the correct thing to do. So a few weeks ago, I went to a track meet, and to kill time in between events, I wanted to do a time lapse. I really only had like 20 minutes to kill before the next race. So let's come in here. Let's set this for 20 minutes. Okay. And again, I want my nice 15-second shot so that I've got plenty to work with. So what this is going to tell me now is that my interval needs to be at 3.3 seconds. So I'm going to round that down and set my camera to shoot every 3 seconds. It's going to take a shot because that's what's going to help get the job done. Now, if I don't care about the playtime, I can also come in here and set my interval. Let's say, again, I want 10 seconds as my interval because I'm trying to get a good scenic shot and get a good shot of the clouds. Now notice my playtime is only going to be 5 seconds. So I'm going to need to ask myself, is that going to be enough footage to get the job done? Is it enough to make it worth doing this? I might need to bump that interval down so I get a little bit more playtime. But this is going to help me do those calculations so I can see what my playtime is, what my interval is, and how long I need to do it. So definitely recommend getting an app that can be your intervalometer for you to help you check your math and to help you really see what you need to set your camera at so that you're getting the best settings. So that's how it works math-wise. So the big things you need to figure out is how long you want to shoot, how long you want your shot to be, your final compiled shot, unless you don't care, which is fine. That's often what I do. And you need to figure out what that interval is so that you know how often your camera needs to take a picture. But since that might be a little bit confusing from a math perspective, let's switch over now to a visual perspective so that you can kind of see examples of what each of these intervalometer settings looks like in the finished shot to help you gauge where your starting point should be. So let's look at this visually. Here's some footage that I shot last week when I was in Utah. Now, I'm doing my typical scenario here, my typical setup. I'm shooting at 10 seconds, and when you look through this footage, you can see from the clouds that there's enough going on in that every 10 seconds that it works. One of the things that's fun to do is kind of to pick a point and then track it to see how quickly it's going by. When you're standing on the ground and you're looking up, unless there's some sort of a weather phenomenon going on, you can't really see movement in the clouds. Again, unless you're stopping and staring and really focusing. So for instance, let's look at this picture right here, and let's see this little wispy right here. Okay. Where is that going in the next shot? So 10 seconds later, boom, you can see it, you can see it right here. And 10 seconds later, you can kind of see it. It's now continuing to evolve right here. 10 seconds later, it's right here. So you can kind of see how that movement is happening and how quickly those clouds are moving every 10 seconds. This is why I like to use 10 seconds as my basis for shooting time-lapse. You can really see the movement as it's happening here in 10-second intervals. So when I play on this clip, you can see exactly what's happening. Okay, so let's then take that 10 seconds and apply it to a different situation. Now, as I mentioned in last week's show, I had the opportunity 2 years ago to go down to Disneyland, and I shot a time-lapse film down there just in the evenings while I was vacationing. So my goal here is to capture movement that's happening. I don't care about the sky. I don't care what's going on up here. I only care about what is happening down here. So, anything down in this area that's movement, that is what I'm after. So let's say that I'm trying to shoot this as a 10-second shot. I'm going to go through this frame by frame. So let's take a look at these people right here. They're easy to spot because this girl's got a blue cap on. So again, 10-second shots. Where's this person going to be 10 seconds later? Well, she's now kind of over here. 10 seconds later, because the cars are moving so fast, where did she go? I have no idea. If the goal is to track the movement, then I have failed because they're moving too fast. I can't see what's happening. So where's this blue hat girl? Nowhere to be found because the shot is every 10 seconds. Things have changed so much, I can no longer find her again. So what I need to do is I need to shoot a little bit faster. And what I found worked for this particular scenario was a 1-second shot because then I can really track the movement. So let's try to find somebody else here. We're going to go blue shirt guy that's right here. Okay, where is he? In a 1-second shot, now he's right here. Next shot over, he's right here. Next shot over, he's right here. So again, you can see I have a much better chance of capturing the movement that I'm after by switching my interval down to a 1-second shot than that of a 10-second shot. So if you watch the shot, you can now actually see the movement of the cars sped up instead of just a big mass mess that you get with 10 seconds. So let's now switch over to another example. Here is King Arthur's Carousel over in Disneyland. And again, I am looking for crowd movement. I'm looking for everything that's happening down in here. So when I have my camera set up for a 10-second interval, let's see what happens here. So look at all of these people. Boom, 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 boom. And if the goal is to track the people, now I'm going to come up to another shot. The next shot, everyone looks completely different because things happen quickly at Disneyland. The crowds are moving very quickly. The next shot, unless someone's parked right here, everyone is going to be different. And again, everyone is different. Everyone is different. So this is obviously a way too fast of an interval speed for me to be shooting what I want. So here I've set my camera for a 1-second interval because I've realized that this is what's going to help me capture the crowds. If I look at the sky, nothing is happening up here in the sky. I'm not there long enough to be able to capture it. So what I want to capture everything happening down here, and I want to actually track these people so I can see the crowd's movements. So let's find a person here. Now, granted, people are moving pretty fast here. So, okay, these blue shirt people right here. See them? Okay. Now they are right here. So granted, they've moved pretty quickly, but I can still capture enough of what's going on to be able to make that effective. Okay, so let's try to capture someone else a little bit distinctive here. So look at this light blue t-shirt guy. Okay, at 1 second he's here. 1 second later he's here. 1 second later he's probably pointing at me going, hey, look at that guy with the camera. And 1 second later he's here. So my interval speed is slow enough that I can successfully capture crowd movement, so that when you see this shot, you can see there's actually crowds moving through the shot the way that I would like them. Again, if I'm taking this every 10 seconds, the bottom is going to almost blur out. It's just going to be this mass of people. You're not going to get a good sense of movement on. So one more quick example here. This is the Dumbo ride. So let's try this with some different settings. So first of all, this is a 10-second intervalometer shot. Okay, so boom. Did you see that? Nice and quick. Because the ride goes so quickly, when I set my camera for 10 seconds, it's going to be too fast to capture what's going on and get a sense of that movement. Let's now take it down to 5 seconds. I've set my intervalometer to 5 seconds. Okay, again, it's really, really fast. You're not getting a sense of that movement. You're not getting a sense of what's going on. So we're going to come back here. This is 1 second shot. And you can get a better sense of what that movement is. So here's the big things that you need to do. You need to ask yourself when you go out to shoot a time lapse, a couple of questions. First of all, you need to say, how long do I have to shoot this time lapse? You need to say, what kind of action am I shooting in this time lapse? Finally, you need to ask, what kind of speed is appropriate with my intervalometer, with my interval, to capture the desired footage that I want? So, for instance, one of the things that made shooting this whole Disneyland project even approachable without destroying my vacation was this intervalometer setting. With the settings that I like, where I have a 15-second shot in edit to work with, I discovered I can shoot a 15-second shot in about 15 minutes when I'm shooting at 1 second at a time. And as I showed you, that helps me capture the movement that I wanted to catch. So that allowed me to shoot maybe 3 different time lapses per hour, including time, moving from spot to spot, which was about 6 time lapses per day. I could spend 2 hours shooting out of my total day at Disneyland. That gave me 6 shots per day with a 4-day pass. That's about 24 different shots, which is enough for a short time lapse film. So I was able to make it work, but again, that was by using 1 second on my intervalometer, not 10, which is what I would typically shoot for scenery. So it all comes down to what you want to shoot. So my biggest recommendation for you is just to get a camera capable of shooting a time lapse, not an iPhone. We'll talk about that again in a future show because that's its own beast. But for instance, a GoPro or a different type of camera. But get that camera and then just go out and play with your intervalometer. So you can set it for like a 10-second shot, which is great for scenery, and see the results. Then you can change it down to, say, a 1 second shot. Pull the footage in, see the results. Eventually, you'll discover what your optimum number is depending on the scenario that you're in, and that will help you shoot really effective time lapses. It's really about figuring out what that interval is and how often your camera needs to take a picture to have the best results. So go out, play, have some fun, do some amazing things, and then, of course, send them to me so we can feature them on the show. So that leads us to this week's question of the week. What is your go-to interval setting? In other words, for what you're shooting, what is the setting you use the most often? Are you shooting often at 10 seconds? Are you shooting often at 1 second? Are you shooting 5, 30, 60? What have you found the best results at for shooting time-lapse? What's that interval number? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to this show on the podcast, send us an email at show@thetimelapseshow.com so that we can feature those results in a future episode. I've mentioned repeatedly that time-lapse is a fantastic format for really trying to understand the world around us, to see the beauties of nature and the many different things that Mother Nature can do to us. But one of the things that it can also do is really give us a good sense of reality as far as the dangers of Mother Nature. This has really been obvious this last week during the car fires in California, where a lot of people have been affected by these fires. Our prayers are really out to these folks, hoping that the fires don't destroy their homes and property and that they can get back on their feet as quickly as possible. But as I said, using time-lapse can really help us to see reality. And so I did a quick search on YouTube for time lapses from this fire, and I came up with this week's clip of the week. This shows how the car fire is ripping through Shasta County and the speed at which it can move. So if you do have problems with fires, make sure you're taking the proper safety precautions so that it's not affecting the lives as much of your family, and get out as soon as you can if it gets close. Because again, seeing time lapses like this can really give us a sense of how fast these things can go and the real dangers that exist with Mother Nature and these types of phenomenon. So that's it for this week's show. Remember, you can follow us on our different social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, lots of content there. Remember, you can send your questions to show@thetimelapseshow.com, so that way you can engage with us. If you don't want to type, you can call the voicemail. That number is 541-321-0472. Remember to answer the question of the week. Remember that if you're listening to the show on iTunes, you can leave us a rating and write us a review. That helps other people find the show as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click down here to subscribe. Also, you can hit the little notification icon so that way you're notified anytime our future episodes post. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And now grab a camera and go speed up the world. See you next week.